Now, first of all, just a short announcement. On Tuesday, I think it's Tuesday, yeah, I'll be going in for my right eye operation. It's a major operation to put a stent into the eye to help the liquid in the eye flow, to bring down the pressure. If all goes well, I don't need eye drops anymore after that. But I'll be needing to rest my eye for at least 2 weeks, I think. So next Friday, I mean, there'll be a holiday, so to speak, a holy day for the next class. We'll announce the following class. So just make a note, yeah. And also thank you for your support during this important and difficult time. The eyesight is very important because we need to look at the sutras, study the sutras, in that way we can teach more effectively. Right, today's sutta is entitled Tanha Bhikkhuni Sutta. So once again, notice this is our what's called the SD convention, Sutta Discovery Convention. You have these brackets, you know. You don't see this anywhere else. The title in the sutta is Bhikkhuni Sutta, but there are quite a number of Bhikkhuni Suttas. So we put this prefix or this ambiguator, Tanha Bhikkhuni Sutta. Tanha means craving, right? The discourse to a nun on craving. Now we know this title because of the context. Ānanda is teaching a nun, right? So the Ānanda's discourse to a nun on craving. You can either remember the title, Tanha Bhikkhuni Sutta, or you can remember this number here. In the new series, we'll put the SD volume also, 10.14. So right now, suggesting we put the full number here, and that's very helpful. So SD 1014, Tanha Bhikkhuni Sutta, or you can remember A4.159, Aṅguttara, the Book of Fours. These are 4 things. The sutta has got 4 items, sutta number 159, right? Now here you see the traditional number A4419. So this is the way the Burmese, Bengalis, and the Thai traditional Tipitaka number. This is the old system, thousands of years, a couple of thousand years ago, they started using this. So here you got A Aṅguttara, and 4, something like part 4, Chatuka, Nipata. Chatuka means 4s, Nipata, collection of 4s. Number 4 again, part 4 or number 4. And then here you have Chatuta, also means the 4th. Panasaka means 50s, collection of 50. The 4th 50s, part 1, and that part 1 is called Indriya Vagga. Vagga means chapter, the chapter on faculties. Sutta 9. Okay, so notice the last number is 9. In this case, they're similar. So this is the old style. It's a bit difficult to remember, but we use this to locate the Pali in the Burmese Tipitaka, Sinhalese Tipitaka, and the Siamese Tipitaka, and of course the PTS, the Western European Tipitaka also. A4.159. If you're wondering what is the sutta about, just to kind of remember it, the theme is fighting poison with poison. So this is just my idea to help us remember what this teaching is about. Yeah. And then here you notice I started the translation 2500 and then revised it recently. Right, so this just to give you an idea. It's an ongoing work. Brother Ryan just now suggested that we can also have a podcast version of suttas. We can read this, but the reader needs to be able to pronounce Pali properly and English ideally, yes. So if anyone would like to volunteer, that'd be nice. Okay. All right. So Now, this Tanha Bhikkhuni Sutta is a short sutta, but very interesting, very important sutta. It's not taught by the Buddha directly, but it's taught by Ānanda, who was a stream winner at that time, or who is a stream winner at that time. And we can see, even as a stream winner, he's very wise. And he's able to be in control of himself. It's very calm. And so this teaching is a very helpful teaching for us to understand ourselves better and understand human nature better. Yeah. All right, let's look at the sutta. Tanha Bhikkhuni Sutta, the Discourse to a Nun on Craving, A4.159. A nun falls in love with Ānanda. At one time, the Venerable Ānanda was dwelling in Gosita's park near Kosambi. Now, Kosambi is located quite far to the west of northern central India, right? Near Punjab area, if you like. So here the story begins. Then a certain nun, so we're not told which nun, it's a certain nun, summoned a certain man and told him, "Come, my good man, go and meet the noble Ānanda. Then salute the Venerable Ānanda on my behalf with your head at his feet, and say to him thus, Bhante, a nun of such and such a name has fallen sick. She is in pain and gravely ill. She pays homage with her head at the feet of the noble Ānanda. Then say this, it would be good, Bhante, if the noble Ānanda would, out of compassion, visit the nunnery and meet that nun." Okay, so this instruction, the nun gives a temple hand, and then the man says, "Yes, Ayya." Ayya is the female version of Bhante. Okay, Ayya means noble, from the word Arya. This is anglicized, so the last vowel, the long R, is normalized here. We put it. We don't have the long R. It's English, but pronounced as Ayya. Okay. "Yes, Ayya," the man replied, the nun in assent, and he approached the Venerable Ānanda. So here we see a very interesting situation. From this sutta, we know this is a time when there were already nuns, but we do not know which period. This probably maybe somewhere in the middle period or a bit later. Ānanda was already serving the Buddha. That means somewhere in the last 25 years of the Buddha's life, because Ānanda spent 25 years taking care of the Buddha. Now, Ānanda is a very friendly monk. He's very caring of the Buddha. To have all these qualities is good, but at the same time, it's difficult for him to attain arahantship because of that. So in a sense, he was quite attached to the Buddha in a good way, taking care of the Buddha. It is said that he could feel if the Buddha was sick, so he was very careful to make sure the Buddha was comfortable and took good care of the Buddha. So he was that kind of ideal attendant, if you like. But because of that, of course, he has a lot of this thought about the Buddha, how is he living and so on, you know. So there is still some attachment, and so he remains on the level of a stream winner. So what does it mean to be a stream winner? In this case, Ānanda basically does not have this idea about that the self is any of the aggregates, that there is an I, that he is a part of either the mind or the body, and that part of the body or the mind does not change. It's something like it's permanent, and he does not identify with it. So in other words, he does not have self-view. There's no attachment to the self. Of course, he doesn't totally understand the nature of non-self, only the Arahat does. We may think we understand non-self, but after talking about it, we forget, and then we still act serving the self. We're still selfish, we get angry, we want this, we want that, and so on. So knowing non-self is one thing, understanding it, realizing it is another thing. But of course, the understanding of non-self helps us to cut down on a lot of attachments, to keep the precepts, for example, right? So Ānanda has overcome this idea of the self. He also has no doubt in the three jewels. He has great faith. He's very happy to serve the Buddha. And it's not the third fetter broken is that of attachment to rituals and vows. So he's not superstitious. He does not look for solutions, prayers, praying to someone outside of himself, any kind of external agency. In other words, he understands the nature of self-effort and self-awakening, right? So this is basically a stream winner. The stream winner has great faith. The stream winner also has great moral virtue, right? But it's not totally awakened yet. So here we see Ānanda very calm, very peaceful, very mindful. All right, so back to the story. So this man goes to Ānanda, 1.2. Then, having approached the Venerable Ānanda, he saluted him and sat down at one side. Seated thus at one side, he said thus, Bhante. Now you notice everything here is italicized. It means this is a repeat. Once you see this paragraph or line or paragraph italicized, you will see it repeats something at the top, something before it. So this man tells Ānanda, says, Bhante, there is this nun. She says she's sick and she wants you to come and visit her. And then the last line in that paragraph, the Venerable Ānanda consented by his silence. Ānanda is always obliging, always caring, and he's especially caring about women because other monks tend to keep away from them because of the Vinaya rules. So Ānanda is there to make sure the women have a chance to talk to the Buddha. The women have a chance to see the Buddha if they want to, and so on. So here we see this nun. Actually, this nun has fallen in love with Ānanda. So one more thing we normally don't talk about is Ānanda is still quite young. So he's good looking. In fact, there are a number of stories about young monks, especially the monk called Samiti. He was very young and very handsome and so good looking that even this female deva fell in love with him. Probably a past life kind of friend, a wife, or some kind of connection. So one early morning, very peaceful early morning, the Samiti was washing up by the river, and then the sun's just rising. Then he comes out of the river. He's wearing this sarong, as the washer always wear a sarong. And then he stands on the dry rock on a piece of rope to dry himself, and he's using another rope to dry himself. So as he's doing this, the female deity appears and kind of speak a love language to him and said, you're young and good looking, and are you spending enough time enjoying life? Things like that, right? So this Samiti is very mindful. Although he's newly ordained, he's very mindful. He's very careful of what he says. So he tells the deity, well, I know the time. I'm letting go of what takes time to what does not take time, with something like that. Okay, the Dharma goes beyond time. So there's like this word dual between the two of them. So they went on talking like that. And then this deity comes down to the ground and talks to him. Now, of course, we today be wondering, wow, a deity coming to talk to you. How come this monk is not excited? Okay, so I suppose those days, because the monks are such good meditators, the devas are very real to them. They could actually see and meet these devas. So these devas came down to earth to stand on the level to talk with Samidhi. And then in the end, Samidhi says, wow, okay, I can answer all your questions. I'm a new monk, Why don't I bring you to the Buddha, and then you can ask him all these questions and he could teach you something. So the Samidhi brings the deity to see the Buddha, and the Buddha teaches him something. So there is that sutta called the Samidhi Sutta, where this teaching is given to this deity. And there also you see a deity falling in love with a monk. So very often you see these things going on, right? With the young monks. So here we see this nun falling in love with Ānanda. So what will happen next? I will be very curious. All right, so what does Ānanda do? Look at number 2. Then the Venerable Ānanda, having dressed himself and taking robe and bow, went to the nuns' quarters. When the nun saw the Venerable Ānanda coming in the distance, she covered her head and lay down on her couch. So apparently she's not really sick. From this story, you can know she can prepare herself to meet Ānanda. She's probably a young nun, so maybe she wants to see Ānanda, so she's pretending to be sick. When the nun saw the Venerable Ānanda coming in the distance, she covered her head and lay down on her couch. All right, then Ānanda admonishes the nun. 2.2. Then the Venerable Ānanda approaches the nun and sat down on the prepared seat. Siddhartha, the Venerable Ānanda, said this to the nun. Wait, before that, you find there's a prepared seat there. So in the monks' quarters, usually they will always place some kind of cushion or some mat in the central place in their kuti, in their quarters. And in case if the Buddha should come, that would be the place for the Buddha or the teacher to sit, if there's enough space. Otherwise, the kuti will be a small kuti, is just for resting. So this probably is a big space, so there's a place for the teacher to sit. A central place usually is where you put your altar, the Buddha altar, all right? So the idea of the altar is something like this. It's like when the Buddha comes, the Buddha would sit there. So here, Ānanda comes, he sits on the teacher's seat, and then the nun speaks to him. Now here, what's interesting is the long story is cut short. Ānanda is very wise, so he kind of more or less knows what's going on in the nun's mind, and he's very compassionate. All right, so he talks very gently to this nun, and so the teaching now follows. She says, "Sister, this body has come into being through food. Ahara sambhuto ayang bhagini kayo." Okay, now the kayo, there's a long vowel there. Okay, correct that a bit, kayo. Okay. So the word for food here is ahara. You can see it has been highlighted, and bhagini is sister. Yeah? It is dependent on food. Food should be abundant. Okay, this is the first teaching. So Ānanda begins with a very general remark. to prepare the nun with Dhamma. Okay, so this is Ānanda also is very skillful in teaching. You can see slowly Ānanda prepares the nun's mind and calms her down, cools her down, if you like. And then from there, teaches her the Dhamma until she realizes the situation, and without embarrassing her, instead, by inspiring her, she learns what her behavior should be. But that, of course, it comes a little later. So what does it mean here when Ānanda says, this body comes into being through food? That is a very general remark, right? Here, of course, when we think of food, we often think of something physical, something solid. The food that we take. 4 elements are found in this food, right? There are solid things like meat, fish, vegetables. That's the earth element. Or there's a lot of soup and water, liquid, like water. And then we like it hot, we like it warm, we cook it, we fry it, fire element. And then there is the wind element. The wind element here is the smell and the way that vegetables change and so on. Okay. So here, ahara, the first meaning is what's called kabalinkahara. Kabalinkahara means solid food. This can be found in your notes if you look at the footnotes, yeah? So no need to look at the notes now, just listen, it's easier for you. So, of course, the Buddha, Ānanda doesn't just mean solid food. We do take solid food, then our body grows because of solid food. In a sense, Ānanda is hinting here, if you take too much food, then your body will grow and you become over healthy, and then you have all these feelings, this carnal feelings, this animal feeling, this kind of very human feeling, if you like, arising, because it's very natural. The body, or you can say the human body, wants to survive and wants to propagate itself, right? So that's how children are born, through sex, because the person is healthy and the person goes on to want to reproduce. So this starts with food. So that is one important reason why monks cut down on food. It's just enough to sustain themselves, to be healthy for their practice, so that they don't go beyond this feeling so healthy and then they want to go to the next stage of the lay person to reproduce themselves. So here Ānanda says you should abandon food. All right. Of course, the word abandon is very strong here. Abandon is used in all the 4 sentences in this paragraph. So here the meaning is cut down on food. You don't need to take so much food, right? So by letting go of food, by restraining yourself, you find it's easier to meditate, you are more calm, you don't feel so much sleepy, things like that. So here Ānanda begins with the most obvious thing, the very first thing in our life, the fact that we take food. And that's the first kind of food. The second kind of food is called contact. Passahara. Passahara. Passa means fan contact. So here we come psychological. We're not told whether Ānanda goes into detail or not. Okay, this is just a kind of the key teaching. I'm sure if Ānanda stays longer, he'll be going on to details, or the nun will ask questions. So how does contact become food? We can say contact in the sense of food for the eye, for example, eye contact. When the eye sees something, there is contact, that is food for the eye, right? And sound hits the ear, there is food for the ear, and so on. So all the other senses work like that. And then you get smell coming to your nose, something fragrant, that's food for the nose. you say, well, this is nice, and you want some more, so that it becomes food. And then there is taste. Of course, taste is the best known kind of food here. So you say, oh, I like this food, I want to have more of this food. And then you have feeling, touch, right? You want comfort, feeling of the air is just nice in temperature, the touch of people, and so on. So this is makes you feel comfortable. And then the last kind of food is thinking, like thoughts, also regarded as food for the mind. We do talk like that. We say food for thought, for example. So in this case, you see the nun thinking about Ānanda, right? So you have this second kind of food, which is called contact. And then there is volition, mano sancetana hara, right? This, notice that the feeling comes to the body, and there is this thought, the mind comes to contact, and then the person wills himself or herself. There is craving, and the craving intense or makes a person wish, say, oh, I want to see Ānanda, in the case of the nun. So there is volition there. Okay, so that's the food that has arisen in her to make her want to see Ānanda. So that's the volition. Of course, in this case, it's not a wholesome volition. It's not good karma. It is lustful. It wants to see Ānanda. And then the fourth kind of food is called vijnanahara, consciousness as food. So when we enjoy these things and our consciousness, all our consciousness are involved, and we become more aware of this kind of situation. Through our consciousness, we become that kind of feeling. So these are the four kinds of food: solid food, contact, volition, and consciousness. Of course, in a sense, this first sentence is a summary of all this, and then Ānanda will elaborate on each of them one by one. Okay. Now I'm going to stop here first with this first food, and then with this first item, and then we'll go on to the rest after the break. Okay, let's look at section 3 again. So now let's have an overview for a while. You see Ānanda first mentioning body as food, and then it goes on to craving, and then conceit, and finally it comes to the point. So Ānanda, you can see, comes straight to the point, the sexual act. So notice here, the nun doesn't say a word before this, but Ānanda knows what he's saying, all right? So Ānanda is given a bit of a psychology of sex, if you like. So he's telling this nun, it's because of food, maybe you're taking too much food, all right? So when you have this food, you feel satisfied, you feel more than satisfied. And the next thing is, there is craving. Okay, so the next third line, sister, this body has come into being through craving, right? So Ānanda relates not to just any theoretical thing. He says, this body is where the sexual feeling arises, and this body arises through food, and food leads to craving, right? So you see a kind of a simple application of dependent arising here. How does food lead to craving? Let's just look at the line first before I say anything further. Sister, this body has come into being through craving. It is dependent on craving. Craving should be abandoned. Once you are satisfied with food, next thing is you seek pleasure, right? You want to have a family, children, and enjoy life, and so on. So this is called craving. Craving means running after things, especially when we think we don't have it, or we don't have enough of it, or we see something nice and we want it. Now, we don't just see something nice. We see something nicer. Now, this word nicer leads to the next point, conceit. Let's find out how it is connected. It is the sister, this body has come into being through conceit. The Pali word is mana, okay? Conceit. It is dependent on conceit. Conceit should be abandoned. By the way, this conceit is not an easy defilement to abandon. Only the arahat has overcome it. But at least we are aware of it. We can cut down on it. Conceit basically is measuring ourselves against others. That's what craving does. Craving makes us look at things and measure. Say, oh, this person has got nice eyes, nice nose, whatever. So and we start comparing. This person is better looking than that person. This person is richer, wealthier than that person, more powerful than that person, and so on. So this is measuring conceit, right? This is very common in daily life, in the secular world. So this is what happens with a nun. She's measuring, say, oh, look at Ānanda, he's very kind, and he's young, good looking, and so on and so forth. So there is this measuring of someone, this conceit, right? And once you look at things like this, you want it, you want to appropriate it. So the sexuality is this kind of appropriation. You want to own this person. You want to become one with this person, and there's a very amusing statement here. I forget the exact words, but it's something like sex takes time. Sex takes time. Takes a lot of time. It is going to take so much time from you that you have no time to practice, because it's not just a sexual act. There are consequences, a lot of things after that, right? So here Ānanda goes right to the point, tells the nun, sister, this body has come into being through a sexual act. This is the most obvious thing, right? This body arose, human body arose through a sexual act. And regarding the sexual act, the Blessed One has advised the destruction of that bridge. Now Ānanda comes to the point. So this last point is differently worded, very strongly worded. The Ānanda previously speaks for himself, but then the last point, Ānanda quotes the Buddha. Okay, says this is the Buddha's teaching. You have to break the bridge. Now he's talking to a nun. See, so he's telling the nun, you must break this bridge. What bridge? The bridge is any of the above. Food, craving, conceit, sex. So this bridge is renunciation. You have to truly understand the nature of renunciation and let go of that craving. Then you will feel happy, right? Now, the Pali word for sexual act is metuna. Metuna, okay? Metuna actually means pair, the pair, no? And Sanskrit is maituna, okay? Now, what's interesting is it just means pair, you know? So it's a very gentle word. It's kind of euphemism, pairing. Like sex in Pali is pairing. Okay? And you find the zodiac, the pair. I think the pair is Pisces, right? The two fishes. No? It's called Maituna in the Indian calendar, even Thai calendar, Metun. Eh? Okay, so you have this idea of pairing, and there's this bridge that brings you across family life, and you're going to be very busy, so you can't live the monastic life. You can't be a good nun anymore, right? So there you are. It's a short teaching Ānanda gave. Then what happens? Next, the Buddha, Ānanda goes on to talk about how the body arises from food. When this is said, sister, this body has come into being through food. It is dependent on food. Food should be abandoned. In reference to what is this said? So now Ānanda explains further. Here, sister, among wisely reflecting on food, okay, now Ānanda reminds this nun, it's probably a young nun, so this reminder says, this is the reflection you should do. Okay? So this is a reflection that monks do before taking food. If they forget to do that, then they reflect after taking food. Okay? So wisely reflecting, I take food. That is one way the monk will now reflect. Not for the sake of enjoyment, not for the sake of indulgence, in other words, become intoxicated with food, not for the sake of beautifying oneself, in other words, putting on weight and looking nice, not for the sake of making oneself attractive, but only for the upkeep and sustenance of the body, for keeping it from harm, in other words, not getting sick and so on, as a support for the holy life. Notice, as a support for the holy life, so that we can practice the Dhamma, thinking, thus shall I end the old feelings. Here, old feelings, hunger, tiredness, and so on, and shall not rouse new feelings, feelings of wanting more, right? And I shall be healthy and blameless and live at ease. So here, there are other teachings about food. For example, the monk also is told to stop eating before they feel full, right? So this, you have to be very mindful about this, right? Then sometime later, based on food, he abandons food. And when this is said, so what happens next? It is in reference, so Ānanda concludes that part, and then he goes on to 5. When it is said, sister, the body has come into being through craving. It is dependent on craving. Craving should be abandoned. So in what reference, in what connection is this said? Here, sister, among hears, they say that a monk of such a name, by realizing for himself through direct knowledge right here and now, with the destruction of mental influxes, attains and dwells in the influx-free freedom of mind, freedom by wisdom. So here, Ānanda is now encouraging this nun. He says, what does it mean? The body arises from craving. Here, we overcome this craving. So we hear people talking in the Sangha, such and such a person has become free from all the mental influxes, right? From craving, views of becoming and ignorance. And now it's an arahat, it's a short form for arahat, right? And he thinks, or she thinks in this case, oh, when shall I too become an arahat, be free from mental influxes and so on, right? So notice here, Ānanda is slowly encouraging the nun to direct her mind to the right thing, for being a nun, 5.4. Then sometime later, based on craving, he abandons craving. When this is said, sister, this body has come into being through craving. It is dependent on craving. Craving should be abandoned. It is in this reference, it is said, overcoming defilements and attaining arahathood. Now, next one is conceit. Let's look at the next one, number 6, further down. Yeah. So here now Ānanda explains the next phrase. When it is said, sister, this body has come into being through conceit. It is dependent on conceit. Conceit should be abandoned. What does this mean? So I'm just summarizing. What does this mean? Right. So here Ānanda explains. They say that such a monk of such a name, by realizing for himself through direct knowledge, right here and now, with the destruction of the mental influxes, attains and dwells in influx-free freedom of mind, freedom of wisdom. And so here again, this monk becomes an arahat, and conceit is abandoned. No more idea of comparing, measuring people, right? So here this is repeat of attaining arahanthood, but stress is conceit is overcome. Then next conceit is mentioned, and here let me summarize this part. So this arahat attains direct knowledge about rebirth and so on, and so this conceit is abandoned, and then he understands better what's going on, and then Ānanda comes to the last point, the sexual act, number 7. We go down to 7, please. Section 7, yeah. So then, sister, this body has come into being through the sexual act. And regarding the sexual act, the Blessed One has advised the destruction of that bridge. To be a monk or a nun is to renounce sexuality. So, Ānanda ends the teaching here, says, becoming a monk or a nun is the destruction of the bridge, is to overcome this attachment to the body. And through food, through craving, through conceit, and thinking of the sexual act. So Ānanda finishes his teaching, and the nun now realizes herself in a positive way. 8. Then the nun rose from her couch, arranged her upper robe on one shoulder, fell at the feet of the Venerable Ānanda, and said this. So here, what's going on here? This is almost quite a humorous situation. This nun is not really sick. She got up and then she arranged her robes and then she bows down, which is she's all right actually. And she realized she has done something wrong. Then she asked for forgiveness. She says, Bhante, I have transgressed. I made a blunder, I made a mistake. To be so foolishly, so confusedly, and so unskillfully behave as I did. I just see she's brave enough, happy enough, inspired enough to say this. Bhante, may the noble Ānanda accept my transgression as a transgression, so that I may show restraint henceforth. So I may let go of all these wrong ideas, right? The Ānanda replies, 8.2. Truly, sister, you have transgressed, to have so foolishly, so confusedly, so unskillfully behaved as you did. Now, notice here, there is no backslapping here. This confession is a very serious matter, right? Ānanda repeats what the nun says. Yes, you're right. You have transgressed. This is wrong, and yes, I accept it since you have said it in the right spirit, right? So, what is she supposed to do now? But sister, since you see your transgression as a transgression and make amends in accordance with the Dharma, we accept it. So here, Ānanda is teaching something very important. He's telling this nun, so you are now listening to yourself, following the Sangha. You want to come back to be your true Sangha self, so to speak, and you are confessing in the Dharma, right? Not just out of fancy, whatever, in the Dharma. And as such, Ānanda says, we accept it. He doesn't say, I accept it. He says, we accept it. In other words, the Sangha accepts you to remind you that you're part of the Sangha, that you're not an individual seeking to have a relationship with a man, okay? So then next is further down, please. Yeah. For sister, it is progress in the discipline of the noble ones. When having seen a transgression as a transgression, one makes amends in accordance with the Dhamma and shows restraint henceforth. So this sutta is also about proper confession, how confession is healing, and how Ānanda as a teacher accepts this nun in a very gentle way and bring her back to the path, giving her joy, giving her restraint, and putting in moral shame, moral fear in her so that she can keep better to the Vinaya and practice the Dhamma. in other words, here we see everyone coming back into the Sangha as a whole, and they live happily as monks and nuns, and they practice for awakening, right? So that much I want to say for the moment. So we have a bit of time, of about 10 minutes, right, for question if there's any. Okay, let's go on then.
Thank you, Piya, for your teaching. Now we have our Q&A. We invite Sister Aisin to take over the session. Thank you, Sister Aisin.
Thank you, Sister Ratna. Thank you, Brother Piya, for the teaching. Brother Piya, and there is no question in the chat box at the moment. Yeah. Any brother and sister would like to ask your question, you can ask it verbally also. Thank you.
Okay, meantime, we can take a family photo. Okay, any questions?
There's a comment from Brother Tom.
Sure.
Yeah, there is more here than I recognize when I read the sutta. Thanks for your unfolding the Dhamma.
Well, there's always something more. The suttas are like little windows and gateways, right? So you look to them, cross references, you find a lot more interesting things growing. The suttas help us to know ourselves better, to understand other people better, and connect the dots. And as we mature in the Dhamma, our vision becomes clearer, and we become happier. Okay, we still have 5 more minutes. So you notice in the early Buddhism, there is this practice of confession. There are some people, especially Westerners, they're not comfortable with the word confession because they think it's a Christian thing. But confession is confession. It's not really, it's older than Christianity, actually. So here, just for it's an English word. The Pali word is patidesana, is to like show out what you have done, right? So instead of using some other difficult word, that's what it means, but it is confess in the Buddhist context. It's not, here confess is not contacting to a higher power, asking for forgiveness. It's rather to ask this other person to be your witness and to give you strength and say, look, I know this is wrong now, and I want to change. Right? So this person said, okay, I accept that, and it's wonderful that you are doing this. So you have, this is called spiritual friendship, especially in meditation. Okay. All right. Any question? A few more minutes.
Anybody want to share anything? Any experience?
Dhamma experience. Anyone?
Yeah, Dhamma experience.
All right. In that case, let me invite Sister Siu Si. You're from Penang, right? Are you from Penang? Yeah.
Yes, Namo
Okay.
Buddhaya. Good evening, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from Penang.
Give us a
Right.
few minutes about how you became a Buddhist and some inspiring things. Yeah, just to.
Yeah. Formally introduced to Buddhism when I was doing my teacher's training at a college. Yeah. So there I joined, MPRM.
Oh, okay.
In Seremban.
Oh, Seremban, right.
Yeah. So I joined the Buddhist society. So from there, I learned my meditation. Actually, I was introduced to, I think, if I'm not wrong, I cannot really exactly remember, but whether it's metta or breathing meditation, I think something like that.
Probably both.
So then after, I think both, yeah. Okay, then after that, when I came back to Penang, I joined Mahindrama Buddhist Temple as their Sunday school teacher. And before that, I also attended their adult Dhamma class. So from there, I joined their training to be a Sunday school teacher. So since then, I think almost 30 years, I guess. There was a few years where I stopped because of family commitments and all. Then after that, I went back again to join them again for the Sunday school. So I've been there until now. And I would like to share about my experience here. Like before I learned Abhidhamma, right? When I was reading the suttas and all, actually, I found it to be very boring because a lot of times, a lot of phrases repeated, you know, and then there's this one change of one word, and it's so long-winded. So I didn't really enjoy reading sutta until I've learned Abhidhamma. So after Abhidhamma, Abhidhamma is more precise. I think it's more precise. Then from Abhidhamma, when I attended some Bante's retreat and Dhamma workshops, where this Bante bring out the respective suttas. So from there, I found that after learning Abhidhamma, I could appreciate sutta better. And I found that Abhidhamma and sutta, they teach the same thing. Yeah, it's the same teachings. But after learning Abhidhamma, I find that sutta is much more interesting. So that's why I've offered also to do the proofreading here, and enjoyed reading. But because of I have quite many commitments at the temple and all, and so it's a bit slow.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, thank you
We
very
never
much.
rush anyone with proofreading. As I told you, proofreading is practice. It's like your breath meditation. I never rush people. And if people decide to quietly stop for a while, that's fine also, because you got to have the feeling for it. I mean, you must think of me also. I'm doing the work, you see. So sometimes you may say, doesn't he find it boring? Well, that was years ago. Now I don't give myself a chance to feel bored about sutta because I stop. When I feel tired, I just stop. I go for a walk, I go to the toilet, I play with the cats, I talk to Ratna, and then I come back later, you see. So I never tell myself, oh, I must finish this, or there is a timeline. The Dharma always waits for you. So I just do it at the right time. And then before you know it, I said, today I put together all the pages. I got 193 pages for volume 61B. I said, that's more than enough, you know, for the second volume, and I can rest for a while until the last quarter of this year, right? So as long as you don't stop, see, the Buddha says, go on, right? There's something to do, right? Just don't stop, don't give up. So that's a wonderful feedback. Thank you, man. Okay, so we come to this point once again, this happy ending, to remind ourselves what we have done today. Like we have practiced the Dharma, we have practiced this wonderful and true renunciation, letting go of time, letting go of our commitments, just to be here, to listen to the Sutta, the Dhamma, to practice the precepts and so on. At the same time, we joyfully show our gratitude to the three jewels, to the Buddha, our teacher, the Dhamma, the teaching that teaches us to be free, and the Sangha to inspire us to attain the path. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Apivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.